Hello peoples! Today's video I'm gonna be doing, hold on, sorry, hold on, I gotta do this right. I'm gonna be doing a, sort of like a dedication, I wanna say my thank you to this certain wrestler, well, former wrestler at this point. He's my favorite wrestler of all time. I mean, I know a lot of people are gonna hate on that, like, this guy's your favorite wrestler, but I'm sorry, you can obviously see on my shirt, CM Punk, so... Today I'm just gonna do like a kind of like a dedication. I'm gonna talk about how I became a Punk fan and go through a sort of his career. Well, from where I started to like him, because I'm gonna be honest, I watched some of his ROH stuff, but I didn't watch it like that. But well, the moment I became a CM Punk fan is when the night he actually when I started to like Punk was when he first won the Money in the Bank back in 2008. This is when I first got back into wrestling, because for a couple of years I didn't watch wrestling. So you know, and then so from the moment, so I'm gonna be honest, I really didn't watch Punk in 07, 06 when he first came in, so I'm gonna be honest, I missed out those first 2 years. But when he won the Money in the Bank the first time was cool. But the moment when I was like, yeah, this guy's the shit. When he cashed in, the night he cashed in Money in the Bank, I marked out. I was like, yes. And it was like awesome, because he worked his ass off. Like, if you watch his DVD, he's even said he can't, he wasn't supposed to be there. If it wasn't for Paul Heyman, there'd be no CM Punk. It's so true. But yeah, and then I love him as a heel is what the thing is. When he's a heel, a face, he can do both. He's one of those guys that I've liked. That's the reason. He's a great wrestler, but he's also great on the mic. He, just everything. Now, he came into WWE August of '06. Yeah, am I right about that? 2006, he came in 2006. Started out in ECW, which was newly reinstated by WWE, brought back up. So CM Punk was on there. He was chasing the ECW title. He had an undefeated streak. I forgot how long it lasted, but he had an undefeated streak on ECW. Yeah. Then he won the ECW title in 2007. He had a great feud with John Morrison. Originally, he was supposed to, I think in that match or one of their matches before Morrison, it was supposed to be CM Punk and Chris Benoit. But that weekend, that's when the whole Chris Benoit thing, I don't want to get into that. So, CM Punk fought Morrison. They had a great match. They had a great feud. That was a great ECW feud, because these were two new guys at the time. Well, Morrison was been there for a while, but this is when he started. This is when he became, after he dropped the Johnny Nitro gimmick and became John Morrison. But anyway, they had a great feud. CM Punk won ECW title, and then held it for a little bit. I think then he lost it to Chavo Guerrero with the help of La Familia, because this is when that storyline was starting. Edge was with Vicky, and yeah, I think Edge or someone from La Familia helped Chavo win the title. So him and Punk had a little feud, and the one moment was cool. CM Punk dressed up as one of the ranchero guys in a sombrero, and he hit Chavo with the guitar. That was cool, badass, like badass. I watch, I love it every time. Then '08 came. That's when he won Money in the Bank, which was awesome. The night he won it, I honestly didn't think he was gonna win it. My pick at that Money in the Bank was Jericho. Jericho, I'm like maybe MVP. But when Punk won, I clapped. I was like, good job. He did it. And then for a while he was floundering. He didn't do much up until the moment he cashed in. Really didn't do anything in between. The moment he cashed in, the segment was like this. This was the Raw after the draft of '08. So, but Edge came out, and because JR, I'm sorry, I'm stuttering. My words are kind of clammed up right now. JR was like doing his goodbye speech, because that year he was drafted to SmackDown. So he was saying his goodbyes to Raw. Edge interrupted. then Edge was like about to walk out, and the Batista came out and pretty much beat down Edge because the night before they had a match, and I guess Batista got screwed in the match. So Batista beat down Edge, and then Batista's walking away, and then CM Punk comes out with the briefcase, cashes it in, and gives the GTS to Edge, and then pins him. That moment, Punk became made, because now he's this guy. Now Punk isn't like in the main event of Raw now. He's in feuds with segments with guys like JBL, John Cena, Batista. These are like main guys at the time. And they're putting Punk with him, and it's cool. And then Batista became the #1 contender at the Great American Bash, which I think the match was okay. The match was okay from what I remember. But the story is with Punk, he kept surviving. Because then at SummerSlam, he had a match with JBL. Was it JBL? It was against somebody, and he retained there. But the moment that sucked, you know what sucked? At Unforgiven, Punk, WWE, the higher-ups, did not like him as world champion. Because they wasn't the cookie-cutter corporate champion like a John Cena or a Randy Orton. He didn't have that look. So they took Punk out by having Orton. Punk gets attacked by Legacy. Well, they weren't Legacy at the time, by Cody, Ted, and that Manu dude. And they beat down Punk, and then Orton punts Punk. So Punk was out. So then the title went to Jericho. Then Punk came back, fought Jericho to a rematch and lost, sadly. And then this is where Punk kind of floundered again. Didn't do much. Punk won, later that in December of 2008, he won the IC title tournament and to where he'll face William Regal for the Intercontinental title, which he won in his hometown. Hold on, I'm going to change the channel real quick. Anyways, so, sorry about that. But, CM Punk won the IC title. It was either late 08 or 2009 is when he won it. He won the IC title in his hometown of Chicago. Oh, I forgot to say, Punk had a little tag team with Kofi, and they won the tag titles for a little bit, so. But then Punk lost the IC belt to JBL. I don't know why, but whatever. And then Punk at WrestleMania 25 won his second Money in the Bank, back-to-back Money in the Bank winner. This is like this guy. Then Punk had a little feud. He had a match with Kane, and then he had a little storyline with Umaga on SmackDown, because Punk was drafted to SmackDown in 2009. So, went to SmackDown, had a little feud with Umaga. Weird, I don't know, that's a random feud. They had a match at Extreme Rules, and then that same night, Jeff Hardy and Edge had a ladder match, which Jeff Hardy ended up winning. He won the big one again. And this is like his second chance because Jeff Hardy got screwed out of the WWE title. But Punk cashes in, hits 2 GTSs, and wins the World Heavyweight title. This is where they started a character change for Punk. Punk started being a lot more heelish. Because, let's be honest, the fans were so behind Jeff Hardy in 2009. They wanted him to win the big one. He's at the time, he was Daniel Bryan now, like everyone wanted Hardy to win, and then Punk screwed him out of the belt. They had a match at the Bash, which Punk kicked the referee inadvertently because his eye got injured. And then after this, Punk started acting a lot more heelish. He would, I think during the match, he even tried to walk away. Then they had that match at Night of Champions, which Hardy won. Then, I think the following SmackDown, Punk, after Hardy had defended his title against Morrison, Punk comes out, says he's congratulating Jeff, and then Punk attacks him. This is where Punk pretty much went heel. They had a great feud. This is definitely my favorite CM Punk feud, because Hardy pretty much made Punk look like a credible heel. This is where Punk got definitely his mic skills started to show. This is where he showed more of his character. Because for a while as a face, they didn't give him that much of a character. He was just like a guy who just wanted to wrestle, I guess. He did the straight edge, but he never went far with it. And it was perfect now because Jeff Hardy, has had known drug problems and stuff like that. with Punk attacking it, and Punk had a reason to be mad at the fans. The fans were cheering a guy like Hardy, who's had so many problems, where a guy like Punk, who doesn't do drugs, who doesn't get suspended, stuff like that, and that's what made the feud so awesome. And then before that, they had it was announced at SummerSlam of 2009 there will be a TLC match with him and Punk and Hardy. Then, like, a build up happens. Punk beat down Hardy by putting his head in a chair and then, like, push it to the ring post. And then the following week, Matt Hardy turned face. That's where the Hardys began again. And then they had the match at SummerSlam, which was amazing. Amazing TLC match. Probably, definitely one of my favorite tables, ladders, and chairs matches of all time, I would say. Yeah, and then after the Punk won, which was cool, then Taker showed up. Taker made his return that night, choke slamming Punk. So I'm like, I guess Taker wants the World Heavyweight title. Hold on. Sorry about that. Punk. The following SmackDown, Punk celebrating his title win, and then Jeff Hardy challenges him, but Punk makes a thing. The match, whoever loses, leaves the company. Because Punk even said in his promo, 2 of us can't stay, 1 of us has to go. And I had a great steel cage match, but in the end, Punk won. Then Jeff Hardy's doing his, like, goodbyes, and then on the ramp, Punk hits him with a belt in the back of the head. And then this is where Punk started to feud with Taker, because, before I talk about that, this is another great CM Punk heel moment. The following week, Jeff Hardy's music plays. People were marking out, maybe he's not gone. And then Punk, dressed up as Jeff Hardy, was awesome. Doing his entrance, he had the getup, he had the makeup, and then during the promo he talks about facing Taker at Breaking Point. And I think it was like a submission match which was announced. So then Matt Hardy came out, beat down Punk. Then they had a match later in the night. Punk was about to take out Hardy. Then Taker shows up and chokeslams Punk through the announce table. What did Punk do after that? Then they had the match in which there was they called the Montreal Screwjob number 2. Okay, because Taker had the match won. He had Punk in the Hell's Gate, and Punk taps. So Taker wins the title, right? John Laurinaitis. Not John Laurinaitis. Teddy Long. Wow, I'm stupid. Teddy Long came out, announces, because it was announced like a year ago when Taker was feuding with Edge. Vicky Guerrero banned Hell's Gate. So the match restarted. Punk locks Taker in the Anaconda Vice. I guess Taker was lifting himself up, and the ref says he tapped. So it was like a big conspiracy to screw over Taker. Then it was announced that Taker and Punk are going to have a Hell in a Cell match. I'm like, oh god, Punk's going to get his ass kicked. And the thing is, during the feud, I like that they made Punk look credible against The Undertaker. Then they had their match at Hell in a Cell. Taker won the title back. Punk, I think after this, started a little thing with the referee. I forgot which. Scott Armstrong. He had a little feud with him. I don't know why. And then Punk fought for the title again at Bragging Rights of 2009. It was a fatal 4-way, which Punk didn't win. And then in November, he formed the Straight Edge Society. He brought in Luke Gallows, a.k.a. Festus. Brought him in. This is where Punk started doing the Messiah Straight Edge Society gimmick, which was awesome. I loved he grew out the beard, the long hair. He looked like a evil Jesus. And then I loved when he started doing the shaving people's heads. I loved it. It was awesome. And then he had a little feud with R-Truth, I think. They had a little feud. Then, what did Punk do? For a while, he kind of floundered. He competed for the tag titles against DX on Christmas of 2009. So, I think that was it, really. And then 2010, this is where Punk was in the Rumble. Oh, and this is where they brought in Serena. Yeah, Punk had a Rumble moment. He was like eliminating a lot of people, and then he was like talking during the thing. It was awesome. Love Straight Edge Society. Great heel stable. One of probably my favorite Punk storylines. Then he started a feud with Rey Mysterio, um, which was awesome because in the one segment, Rey Mysterio was celebrating his son's birthday. Then Punk comes out with Straight Edge Society and pretty much makes Rey look like a pretty much punks Rey out in front of his family, which is very like that's just got to be that moment where you can say Rey was boiling. It was awesome and he got a lot, and the thing is, Punk got a lot of hate mail for that, and like he got legit hate mail for it, which means Punk did his job. And then they had a great match at WrestleMania, Rey Mysterio winning. Then they had another match at Extreme Rules, which Punk won with the help of. This is where Joey Mercury came back and joined for a brief couple of months. Joey Mercury came back as one of Punk's members of Straight Edge Society, so he's the extra one. I think the match was if Rey wins, Punk cuts his hair. So then they had another match, the finale match at what pay per view was it? Judgment Day. It was Judgment Day, right? Over the Limit, not over Judgment Day. Over the Limit. They had a hair versus. I think if Rey lost, he would have to join the Straight Edge Society. I would have kind of want. Thing is, I'm not mad that Rey won. It's just I would have kind of liked to see where that went if Punk actually had won. Rey joining Straight Edge Society would have been cool. We could have saw a different side of his character, but Rey won, so they cut Punk's hair. And this is where, for a period of time, he started wearing a mask. He had a mask, which was cool. He was in a Fatal 4-Way for the title at the pay-per-view Fatal 4-Way in 2010. Didn't win. Then he started feuding with the Big Show, and Big Show unmasks Punk. What did Punk do? He didn't do much for a while. For a while, he had a little feud with Big Show. Punk started showing his bald head. This is about the time Punk started floundering around. He didn't really... After his feud with Rey, I think this is where Punk kind of fell off for me. Because he wasn't in a lot of main feuds anymore. He was just kind of floundering around. He fought Big Show twice. I think at SummerSlam and Night of Champions. And then after that, Punk didn't do much. Luke Gallows Punk fired Luke Gallows, and they had a one match. I was like hoping for a feud, honestly. I was hoping we get a feud. That would be cool, but no, they had like one match. Punk won, and then a month later in October of 2010, Punk was traded to Raw because Edge was traded to SmackDown. So then Punk won a spot to be on Team Raw. So, and then Team SmackDown won. Punk didn't do anything. After this, I think he got injured. So Punk became an announcer on commentary. Man, I love Punk on commentary. It was awesome. It was like about a month he was on commentary. I think for a good month he was on commentary. So I loved him on commentary. He was awesome. Did a great job. Then the couple weeks before 2011, CM Punk attacks John Cena. Several on Raw, I think the night after TLC, John Cena had just defeated Wade Barrett, and Cena had a match with Ziggler, and then Punk attacked Cena with a chair. And then the following night on SmackDown, they had a Tuesday night special. Same thing happened. And then John Cena pretty much demands why did Punk attack him the following Raw. And then Punk comes out, pretty much says John Cena's not a good guy. He got many people fired. He brought up Batista. And Punk over the night that night was trying to get people to turn against Cena. And then he even what did he do after that? Feuded, started beating down. Then Nexus attacked Cena. Then Punk came out, GTS Cena, and then joined Nexus. I'm gonna be honest. This is one of my least favorite CM Punk storylines. I was not ever big a fan when he joined New Nexus. I'm like, why? I didn't mind him feuding with Cena. He's like, finally, Punk feuding with like a big name. Because before Punk, the only big name he feuded was with Rey. I'm gonna be honest. At the time, Rey Mysterio was the only big name Punk feud. I mean, I guess Jeff Hardy too, but a main eventer like Cena. So I didn't mind that. I just didn't like the way it was done. I'm like, why does Punk have to be in Nexus? But whatever. So Punk became the leader of New Nexus, and then Heath Slater and Gabriel left. They went to SmackDown, and that's where they formed the core on SmackDown. Then it was Punk, McGillicuddy, Otunga, I think, and Husky Harris. Yeah. Then Punk fights Cena in a couple of matches. Then Punk loses the Rumble. And then at the same pay-per-view, Punk costs Orton the WWE title by GTSing him. So the next night, I guess we had started a Punk-Orton feud now. So I'm like, wait, all of a sudden, I'm going to be honest, my cable at this time was out, but I caught up with what happened, so I'm just going to speak up about that. So I guess Punk started feuding with Orton. And Husky Harris was taken out because Orton punted Harris. Then Punk was in the chamber match. I think he beat Cena clean on Raw before Elimination Chamber. I'm like, that's awesome. When I heard about it, I'm like, wait, no, because no one really beats Cena. Doesn't lose clean. I mean, especially on Raw. I mean, it wasn't clean. I'll give him that. It was dirty because he hit him with something. But at the same time, no, it's still, you don't see John Cena get pinned on Raw at all, really. So Punk won. Then he was at Chamber. I think he lost. And then Punk and Orton started a feud. And Orton, the stipulation was for the match, Orton would have to fight every New Nexus member. And if he wins, that member will be barred from ringside. So Orton pretty much systematically took out Nexus. Oh, during this time, a guy Mason Ryan joined the group. So big buff dude. Orton took them all out. And then Punk injured his knee. Orton was fighting, I think, Rey Mysterio, and then Punk came to his wife, and then Orton ran to the outside, and Punk pretty much beat him down. I liked their feud, actually. I was hoping Punk to win clean at Mania. No, he didn't. But they had a great match, though. WrestleMania 27, Punk and Orton put on a good match. The finish, I'll admit, was good. Because I liked both guys. At the time, I loved both guys. The RKO, though, out of midair was badass. I ain't gonna lie, the RKO out of midair was badass. Then they continued the feud. They had another match at Extreme Rules. Orton was drafted to SmackDown, but they continued their feud. He lost again. I mean, why couldn't Punk at least won at Chamber? Orton was going to SmackDown anyway. I'm like, he could have took a loss. Was the last man standing. Orton didn't even have to get pinned. It was a good match, though, nonetheless. It was a good last man standing, I ain't gonna lie. Then Punk just floundered, really. He had a tag match against Kane and Big Show over the limit. Then, one night, Punk dressed up as Randy Savage, because around the time this happened, Randy Savage died. Death happened. So Punk did the Randy Savage outfit, which I love. I love how he also pays homage to major wrestlers. I love how he does that. So Punk did that. Then Punk had a match with Rey Mysterio at Capital Punishment, and then next night Punk became the number one contender for the WWE title at Money in the Bank. And this is where the pipe bomb story is about to start. CM Punk announced after the match that his contract is going to expire July 17th of 2011. July 17th, not 15th. July 17th of 2011. He will face. Then the following week, this is where he drops the pipe bomb. During a match with R-Truth, it was R-Truth and Cena in a tables match. Which Cena was about to win. He was about to AA Truth through the table, but Punk moved the table. Then R-Truth speared Cena through the table. Then Punk, this is where he drops the pipe bomb. I love that moment. I was like, oh my god. This is where I'm like, and a lot of people were even asking, is this real? He just went off. I mean, it was a lot of his it was his feelings like he was been holding back. And he was suspended for 1 week, and then comes back. There was announced that Cena and Punk and Money in the Bank for the WWE Championship. If Cena lost, though, Cena would be fired. I say fired. But following week, the Raw, the Go Home Show to Money in the Bank 2011. CM Punk comes back with the megaphone, cuts an amazing promo. What the weird thing is, why is he still wearing his Nexus shirt? I thought by now he should be done with Nexus. And then they had a match at then they had that contract signing between Vince and Punk was amazing. These guys just going back and forth. It was awesome. Apologize. And it seemed like Punk turned face because he started saying good stuff about the fans, and then they had the match at Money in the Bank. Oh my god, I love this match. And the thing is, it's one of those matches like it leaves you on the edge of your seat. But Punk wins. I mean, it's not clean. Cena got distracted because Vince was trying to tell John Laurinaitis to just throw off the match. Cena punches Laurinaitis. Cena runs back in the ring, eats a go to sleep. CM Punk wins, and this was all in his hometown, which made it even best. It was raw. It was in Chicago. Man, Punk, when he won, man, the crowd went crazy. CM Punk walks out, blows a kiss to Vince McMahon, and he was gone for a week, I know. And then the following week, the next night, it's announced that Triple H becomes the COO. And then the following week, Triple H says he's brought some people back. We have a main event of John Cena and Ray for the title. Ray winning the title earlier in the night. Cena gets an automatic rematch. Cena wins, like, oh god. And then Punk comes back. New theme. Comes back with Cult of Personality. With the Best in the World white shirt. Yeah, new outfit, new music. Comes out. Pretty much owning Cena. A lot of people weren't happy that he came. Some people were like, he came back too early. I mean, yeah, I can agree. I can see your point there. He did. I feel like they could have waited out for a little bit. Then Punk explains the following week why he resigned and all that. And then Triple H, they have a segment, which was awesome because it felt real because there's been a lot of heat between Triple H and Punk. And they go back and forth. And then it's announced that Triple H announces that there are going to be two WWE champions for now, that at at SummerSlam, they will have a match between Punk and Cena for the unified, undisputed WWE Championship. The problem I had, they should have made it a ladder match. That would have been cool. Do like an homage to WrestleMania 10 when they unified the IC belts. They should have done that. That would have been cool. So I think a regular match, kind of like, I don't know. Then they have the match. Oh, they have the contract signing, that was another good segment. Then they have the match. Really good match. Their Money in the Bank one was better, but it was a good one. Punk wins, but Cena had his foot on the rope, and this is where Del Rio cashes in because Kevin Nash power bombs Punk, and then Del Rio cashes in Money in the Bank. Then Punk, I guess, this is where they were gonna start a feud between him and Kevin Nash. I guess Kevin Nash and Punk had a feud. Punk wins. Oh, no. Punk comes out, they have a segment. It was amazing. I love how he just pretty much buried Kevin Nash. Then Kevin Nash cost Punk a chance at the title. Because it was a number one contendership match. It was Cena and Punk. In the main event, whoever wins will face Del Rio at Money in the Bank. I mean, at Night of Champions, I'm sorry. And then Cena wins because Kevin Nash distracts Punk, and then Triple H, pretty much Punk buries Triple H again, And then Triple H says that they'll make a match between him and Nash, but later that night, Triple H changes the match from Kevin Nash and CM Punk and Night of Champions to Triple H saying it'll be Triple H and CM versus CM Punk. So I'm like, I saw this coming. I'm like, they're gonna probably have a match at some point. Then they have a contract signing the following night on SmackDown, which is weird. I thought that was kind of weird though. Why didn't they do it on Raw? But whatever, it was a good segment nonetheless. These guys, they work very well together on the mic. I mean, Triple H has always been good on the mic, and then you got Punk. It was perfect. Then Kevin Nash comes out because he's pretty mad too. Punk and him brawl. Triple H pushes Punk, and then Lesnar gives him a big boot. Not Lesnar. Nash big boots Punk, and then pushes Triple H. The following Raw, CM Punk fights CM Punk and Kevin Nash, and Triple H announces that he's gonna fire Kevin Nash because he finds out that Kevin Nash pretty much texted himself from Triple H's phone because he went to Triple H's office, texted with Triple H's phone. Yeah, so Kevin Nash is fired, and then the following the go home show tonight of Champions. These guys had a great back and forth. Oh my god, it was really good. It felt real. And then they had the match, which was the match. The thing was, it wasn't the wrestling. It was a clusterfuck. You had Awesome Truth come out. You had Kevin Nash, and then also Punk should have won. Let's be real. Then Punk gets put in a title match at Hell in a Cell in a triple threat against Del Rio and Cena. And they have the match. It was an okay triple threat from what I remember. Then Punk starts a feud with Awesome Truth. And it was an at Vengeance. It will be CM Punk and Triple H against Awesome Truth. They have the match. Yeah, they have the match and Punk wins. Really, that's as easy as I could say it. Punk wins. No, did it wrong. Awesome Truth won with the help because Kevin Nash powerbombs Triple H. He powerbombs the shit out of Triple H, so it costs them the match. Then the following night on Raw, Punk challenges Del Rio at Survivor Series because Del Rio and Punk never got his one-on-one rematch. So Punk challenges Del Rio at Survivor Series for the WWE title. And yeah, and then Punk on Halloween edition of Raw pretty much put Punk in the Anaconda Vice. Puts Del Rio in the Anaconda Vice after Del Rio gets knocked out by the Big Show. Pretty much forcing Del Rio to have the match. And then they have the match. Really good match. It was really good. Punk wins the title, which started the epic 434-day reign. He went on to feud with, he had a match at TLC against Miz and Del Rio in a triple threat TLC match. Really, from what I remember, it was a decent match. Punk wins. It was the main event. This is the pay-per-view which didn't have Cena for once. I know, what a change, right? And then Punk he retains there. Then at Royal Rumble, he starts a feud with Laurinaitis, and I love that episode where Punk ripped Laurinaitis to shreds. It was a little bit before the Royal Rumble. It was announced that Laurinaitis is going to be the special guest enforcer, and Punk buries him. Oh my god, he buries him verbally. He called him pathetic. And then they have the match. Punk retains. John Laurinaitis didn't end up screwing over Punk. That's what I thought was going to happen, actually. So it didn't happen. So they had the match. It was a decent match. Punk retained. Then the following night on Raw, Punk gets attacked by Chris Jericho. This is where they plant the seeds for that match. Because CM Punk's fighting Daniel Bryan, and then Jericho gives a code breaker to CM Punk. So, following week, Punk and Jericho. Punk's announced he's going to defend the title in the Elimination Chamber, which Jericho's one of the participants, and they had that debate, which was cool. It was a cool segment. I enjoyed it, thoroughly enjoyed it. Punk retains at Chamber. It was a decent Chamber match. I did not like it was the first match. The WWE Championship. I know. But Cena and Kane, an ambulance match, was the main event. I know, right? Then Jericho wins a Battle Royal to face CM Punk at WrestleMania 28 for the WWE title. And they had a great build-up. The build-up was good. The following week, Punk and Jericho had an amazing exchange. And I love when Punk said, "Screw your stupid light bright jacket." It was awesome. Then a couple of weeks before Mania, Jericho pulls out the family card. He starts claiming his dad is an alcoholic, trying to get in Punk's head. And then at Mania, they had the match, really an amazing match. And it was announced there, Laurinaitis added his thing. If Punk gets disqualified, he loses the title. So, Punk wins. He had to control his anger. It was another way Laurinaitis could stick it to Punk. So, they had the match, was amazing. Punk makes Jericho tap out. So, Punk retains at Mania. And then next night, Chris Jericho attacks CM Punk and hits him a bottle over the head. Man, this is where his view was starting to get personal. Because Punk's straight edge, and then he just put alcohol on him. This next 2 weeks he was doing that. It was awesome. It was great. Jericho was being a great heel. He was being a great antagonist. Then they had the match at, Punk he faked being drunk. It was awesome. I like that too. And then Punk had the match at, Extreme Rules. It was a Chicago street fight. Because Extreme Rules is in Chicago. Punk retains. Great match. It was very physical. I love the elbow drop through the announce table. Great match. Punk retains. Then the next night is announced that he will face Daniel Bryan at Over the Limit. They had a great match at Over the Limit. It's a travesty that Cena and Laurinaitis was the main event and this wasn't. This was a straight out wrestling match. And it ended in kind of controversy because Punk retained, but Daniel Bryan had him in the label lock. But Punk kind of rolled him up. So Punk retained the belt. And then Kane, for some reason, gets involved in the feud. So at No Way Out, it's a triple threat. Punk, Kane, and Bryan. And this is the storyline where AJ goes crazy and starts liking Punk, but she likes Kane and likes Daniel Bryan. So CM Punk retains at No Way Out. With the help of AJ, gets bumped off the ring, and Punk puts Kane asleep and retains the belt. He retains the belt there. Then at Money in the Bank, he will face Daniel Bryan in a what match was it? In a no rules match, basically at Money in the Bank with AJ as special guest referee. Interesting. Then this is where they started the whole romantic angle. AJ proposing to CM Punk. Then they had the match. Amazing. Ending with Punk slamming Daniel Bryan through the announce table. Then Punk retaining the belt. Walking out Chicago with the title. Then the next night is announced Cena cashes in Money in the Bank by saying he'll face Punk at Raw 1000, where they had a great. Okay, before I get into the match, Cena and Punk comes out to pretty much because Daniel Bryan had the wedding, in which at the ending it was AJ becomes general manager, and then Daniel Bryan's like mad, and then Punk comes out, kind of rubs it in his face. Then The Rock comes out. The Rock verbally makes fun of Daniel Bryan, and then Punk tells Punk that he's gonna face whoever's WWE champion at Royal Rumble. I was like, what? Are you serious? The Rock can just say he can get a title match just because he's The Rock? I was mad. I was like, why? And the thing is, I like The Rock, and I love The Rock, but he can't just come in and go over so many other guys who deserve it to just say, oh, I'm getting a title match at Royal Rumble. That's not fair. So they have the match. Then after that, Punk defends the title later that night against Cena in the main event. Cena like apparently is about to win. And then Big Show costs Punk the match. Then costs Cena the match by attacking him. Then Punk does not help Cena because Cena was getting beat down by the Big Show. It's getting a beat down. And then The Rock comes out, saves Big Show. And then this is where Punk turns heel at Raw 1000 by clotheslining Punk, The Rock, and giving him a go to sleep. It was awesome. I was like happy because I was like, at the time, I was starting to get bored of Punk as a face. I'm like, yeah, have him go heel. I mean, and it was great because the heel turn was gradual. It wasn't immediate. The following week, he had a great reasoning. The Rock can't just come back and say he can face him, and he even says that Punk wasn't even focused. The Rock wasn't even focused on Punk. He was only Daniel Bryan, basically acting like Punk wasn't there. I'm like, he's the WWE champion. I can see why Punk got mad. I honestly can see it. It just makes so much sense. I mean, I'd be mad. Hell, you know? Then, later that night, um, then it was announced that, because Punk, it was supposed to be Cena versus Big Show. Whoever wins will face Punk at SummerSlam. Punk costs both of them the match. Punk's about to walk out. AJ says it will be a triple threat. Punk, Cena, Big Show at SummerSlam. And the funny thing is, he faced both these guys in previous years. He faced Big Show at SummerSlam 2010, Cena at SummerSlam 2011, and now both of them in 2012. That's amazing. Just saying, it's a little pointer right there. Um, then they have the match, really good match from what I remember. It was Big Show was being dominant, and it had a weird finish because Punk does the Koji clutch, but Cena puts Punk in the STF, and then I would say Vicky Guerrero, AJ Lee restarts the match. Um, then Punk kind of takes an easy way out. Cena hits the AA on Big Show, and Punk just throws Cena out and then pins Big Show. And then the next night, Punk gets to pick out who's going to face at Night of Champions. He picks Cena, but Cena has to say that Punk's the best in the world. Cena refused to, so he had Jerry Lawler. This is where Punk started having a little program with Jerry Lawler, because he says he didn't like that Jerry Lawler said that Punk turned his back on the WWE Universe. And then Punk was demanding Jerry Lawler to say it. He demanded an apology, and then he also demanded Jerry Lawler to say it, which Jerry didn't say it. Jerry's about to walk away, and then BAM! Punk with a kick to the back of the head. I truly believe that's where he turned heel. I felt like after that, he started acting a lot more heelish. The next week, he shaves his head with a new shaved head. Pretty much makes fun of Jerry Lawler. And then Jerry Lawler, pretty much Punk goaded Jerry Lawler to a match that night. And then the fans got to choose a stipulation. The fans chose Steel Cage. Punk got busted open in this match, but Punk pretty much won. Then Punk locks himself in the cage and demands Jerry Lawler to say he's the best in the world, and then Punk's like beating him up. And then Cena comes for the save, and then Punk rolls out. This is then the following week, Raw's in Chicago. And the thing is, they're still treating Punk like a hero, and he's even says like, "Hey, I didn't turn my back on you. You saw Jerry Lawler attack me first." And then Sheamus was in the ring, world champion versus world champion. That's what the main event was supposed to be. Punk walks out and says, "Oh, I'm taking vacation, taking a day off." And then, but later that night, Cena is in the main event against Del Rio. Cena has AA's Del Rio on the, I think on some boxes. And then Punk attacks Cena, GTS Cena on the car, and then guess who's driving the car? Punk gets in the car. The person who's driving the car is no other than Paul Heyman. I was like, yes. I think this will solidify his heel turn now that he's with Heyman. Because Lesnar took a break. He was out for a while. Then Punk, the following week, They really never explained their relationship. Um, this is the night Jerry Lawler got a heart attack. Um, but the main event segment was awesome. That same Raw, he interrupted Bret Hart. Man, it was in Montreal. He got asshole chants. I mean, basically, Punk says that Hart was nothing. And what I love, Punk was wearing Bret Hart attire. He was wearing pink, black, and white. I love, like I said, he's paying homage and he's doing it on purpose. It was awesome. And then Punk interrupts Cena talking to Bret Hart, and they had a good back and forth. Then Cena says he's gonna kick Punk's ass at Night of Champions. Then at Night of Champions, they had the match. I'm not saying it was the match itself as a wrestling match was great. I hated the ending. I don't know why WWE just couldn't give Punk the win. Just let him win. I don't. The perfect way to end it too. Punk did the rock bottom during this match. That would have been a perfect finish. That would have been a perfect finish right there. Just saying. Then the next night, he's in a tag team match. Then gets pinned. Over the next week, after this is where Punk goes full heel. He pretty much disowns the fans in Albany. He had a segment with Mick Foley. This is where Mick Foley was trying to goad. This is where everybody's trying to tell Punk, face Cena at Hell in a Cell, inside Hell in a Cell. And Punk was pretty much like, why? I already beat Cena. I agree. A lot of people were trying to force him to face Cena. Then he went to face Cena face to face later that night. Man, Punk was being such a heel. I mean, he was fake giving a kid a high five. And then Punk goes in the ring and pretty much tells Cena, I'm not facing you. Because I'm going to hurt you. Because Cena, this is where Cena was in a sling. But, Punk, then the segment where he interrupts Jerry Lawler, JR, I mean, man, that was awesome. When he interrupted JR, it was such a heel thing to do, because Punk was acting insincere, but he was trying to act like he's all nice. JR, you're the best in the world at being a commentator. But he wanted, this is because this is where Punk was going on the respect. He wanted respect, you know? And then Punk pretty much asking JR, can you tell these people that I'm the best in the world? JR pretty much tells Punk he's a jackass. And then Punk pretty much tells, like, I will hurt you, JR. That you, man, oh man, he freaking, it was because it was supposed to be JR Appreciation Night. And Punk pretty much berates JR walks out, and then Ryback comes out of nowhere. So Ryback comes out, stares down at Punk, and then Punk walks out. Then Punk's in the main event later that night. He loses because Dolph Ziggler walks out, like Punk did a couple of weeks earlier. Then they had a match on SmackDown. Then Punk debuted the yellow shirt, interrupting Vince McMahon. It was awesome. I love when he interrupted Vince McMahon. I was like, you have to be on heat if you're gonna a big name to be at least working with Vince McMahon himself. And Punk did. Punk worked with him. Punk pretty much made fun of him. Punk just insulted Vince, saying that Vince is a nothing more than inept millionaire. Then then they had the pretty much, and then they had a match. Pretty much Punk slaps Vince, and then Vince says Punk will be fired if he doesn't accept his challenge for a match in the main event. So they had the match. Punk wins. Well, Punk beats down Vince because he attacks Vince from behind. So Punk has to choose between Cena and Ryback. The following week, Punk pulls a trick. Then Cena gives Ryback a spot, so it'd be Ryback and Punk. I'm like, why? Weren't we trying to build to Punk and Cena for like the last month? Then all of a sudden, oh, we're gonna have him face Ryback now. That's weird. Then he faces Ryback at Hell in a Cell. It was a match. The only thing that happened, the ending, Brad Maddox screws Ryback out of the match. And then this is where, did Punk have something to do with it? And then Punk pretty much claimed, I did not know anything to do with Brad Maddox at Hell in a Cell. Then, originally, Punk challenged Mick Foley to a Team Foley versus Team Punk match at Survivor Series. We're getting close to the anniversary of CM Punk being champion for almost a whole year at this point, which was awesome. I'm happy that they let someone else hold the ball and not give it, oh, we're going to go right back to Cena. And I hate those people who say he was a mid-card champion. In my opinion, Punk had the best matches that year. But I digress. So, but the next week, Vince changes it, and it'll be Punk versus Cena and Ryback in a triple threat at Survivor Series, which Punk retains with the help of the Shield. The Shield debuts and beats down Ryback. Punk pins Cena, retains the title, and then this is where he celebrates 365 days. I clapped. I was like, yes. For 1 year, we didn't have Cena as champion. It was awesome. Kind of a nice change of pace, not having Cena be champion every week. Then he fights, then he faces, then Ryback comes out, but the Shield beats down Ryback again. Now's the question, is Punk working with the Shield now? Then the Shield beats down, then Miz challenges Punk to a lie detector test because he wants Punk to be on Miz TV to see, did Punk do anything to do with Brad Maddox and the Shield? Then, they had this segment was okay. They had a little banter, and then the Shield come out, screw it up. Then Team Hell No comes out, then Ryback comes out. Then they all fight out, and then Punk celebrates, and Ryback beats him down. This is where Punk gets injured, and he's out for 1 month. Punk is out. He got injured at because by Ryback. So Punk, but he still showed up. He cut a segment, a promo at TLC, and then he faces then he faces then it was announced that Punk on the first Raw 2013 will face Ryback in a TLC match, in which they had the match. It was a good match. It was okay. The Shield win with Punk wins with the help of the Shield. But but what else happened? They had the match. Then later that night, Punk owns the fans as a heel. Wait, I think I skipped. Okay, you know what? Why not? We're here. Punk had the match. They had the match at TLC. They had a TLC match at Hell in a Cell. Oh my god, I'm throwing my words around. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen. So scrambling my words. Punk and Ryback had the match on Raw in a TLC match. Shield helped. Then later that night, Punk owns the fans. He owns WWE, really. He buries WWE, saying the fans, he didn't do it for the fans, he did it in spite of the fans. And then The Rock and him have a good segment. Punk won because he didn't use the same old shtick. Punk, this is where he uses the boxing with God line. I love that line. When he said that, I was like... And then he gets a rock bottom, and then they brawl the next week. And then Rock gets beat up by the Shield, the go-home show at Royal Rumble. Then Punk and Rock have the match, which Punk wins originally because the Shield got involved, and then Vince McMahon restarted the match. And then, what makes me mad? Why give it to The Rock? He didn't. In my opinion, he didn't even deserve the win. Honestly, I was hoping Lesnar would get involved and we get a Lesnar CM Punk Shield stable. That would be badass. I was disappointed. I don't know. I just then the next night he just explodes. Then he challenges Rock to a rematch at Elimination Chamber. Then Punk fights Jericho the following week, and then Punk steals the title, which I love, because Paul Heyman trips The Rock when he was trying to do the People's Elbow, and then Punk gives him the GTS, steals the title, and then Punk loses again at Elimination Chamber. Then challenges Cena to a match. Then Cena pretty much goaded John Cena into a match, in which it would be if Cena loses, whoever wins will face The Rock at WrestleMania, and that person, Cena was willing to put up his Royal Rumble win. And what makes me mad, they had a great match, but I thought it was leading up to maybe a triple threat between Rock, Cena, and Punk. No, that didn't happen. Cena wins, and we get Rock, Cena tonight now. But anyway, the following week, Punk ends up facing The Undertaker at is announced because Punk wins a Fatal 4-Way match to face Taker at WrestleMania, in which Punk starts stealing the urn. Oh, I love that storyline when he steals the urn. Because Paul Bearer the next night dies. He dies literally the night after the match was made. So steals the urn, pretty much, and then drops it one Raw, and then he pretty much antagonizing the Undertaker, attacking the Undertaker mentally. Taker tries to get it back every time, and then the go home show to WrestleMania was awesome when he hit Taker with the freaking. He has Paul Heyman dresses Paul Bearer, and then Punk dresses as Druid, beats down Taker with the urn, and then pours the ashes onto him. Oh my god, what a heel thing to do. Then he loses at WrestleMania. Then Punk walks out. He's gone for 2 months. He's gone for like 2 months. Because then he comes back the next night. So Punk was gone for 2 months. Comes back. It was announced at Payback that Jericho pretty much challenges CM Punk at Payback, which is going to be in Chicago. Pretty much Paul Heyman accepts for CM Punk, and then Punk comes back at Payback, debuts the Wolverine look. This is where the cracks begin with Paul Heyman and CM Punk, because Paul Heyman nearly cost CM Punk the match at Payback, which Punk ends up winning. It was a good match. Their match is Jericho and Punk. It's an instant classic automatically. It's not a question, you know. It's like these guys are gonna have a great match. It's CM Punk and Chris Jericho. Then the next night, Punk pretty much tells Paul Heyman, "I don't want you on ringside with me. I'm not your client. I'm your friend." And then this is where the seeds plant for Lesnar, because Lesnar comes out, attacks CM Punk by giving him an F5. Then Punk demands Paul Heyman to see, asks Paul Heyman if Paul Heyman had anything to do with Brock Lesnar attacking CM Punk. And what I love during the segment, I love how they brought out the stuff that was spoke on the DVD. And they aired out a lot of stuff the following week. It was a good segment. Paul Heyman denies that I didn't know that Brock Lesnar was going to attack me. He didn't have anything to do with Lesnar attacking Punk. Paul Heyman, but you know Paul Heyman had something to do with it. Hugs Punk. Then Punk's put in the Money in the Bank All-Star match at Money in the Bank. Then Punk's like about to win it at Money in the Bank. He's climbing the ladder. Then Paul Heyman hits Punk with a ladder, turns on him. And then the next night, oh man, the segment was amazing. Paul Heyman and CM Punk, great back and forth. Punk pretty much says, "I'm gonna get you, Paul Heyman." And Brock Lesnar comes out. They had a brawl. And then I'm like, yes, we're getting this match at SummerSlam. And then Punk challenges Lesnar. Paul Heyman accepts. Then the following week, Punk's fighting Curtis Axel. Punk gets his hands on Heyman, and Lesnar comes out, F5s, They had a brawl, F5's Punk, and then Punk, the go home show to rest to SummerSlam 2013. Punk hits Lesnar with a camera, and then GTS's Curtis Axel. And then they had the match. My God, match of the year of 2013, my opinion. Best match of 2013 by far. It was a physical. I'm happy they made it no rules. Yeah, I'm very happy they made it no rules. Then then after that, Punk owns a fat fan on a Raw. Man, that was funny. Oh God, I cracked up. And then Paul Heyman and this is where CM Punk and the Heyman feud kind of started to get weak. But this is where Punk started getting kind of weak because the Heyman feud. It kind of fell off for me because then you added Curtis Axel and Punk. It was Curtis Axel and Paul Heyman versus CM Punk at Night of Champions. Ryback gets involved. Oh God, when Ryback got involved, then he fights Ryback at Battleground. Then Punk wins with a low blow. Anyways, oh yeah. Anyways, I kind of lost my train of thought there. Then he fights Ryback and Paul Heyman in Hell in a Cell. Punk finally gets his vengeance on Paul Heyman. Then after that, starts a feud with the Wyatt family. Teams up with Daniel Bryan to fight the Harper and Rowan at Survivor Series. And then after that, starts feuding with the Shield. Kane pretty much puts Punk in a 3-on-1 handicap match at TLC against the Shield. Punk wins miraculously. So over the next, this is where I started to notice. I didn't at the time, but if I look back now, where Punk ends up, what happened end up happening, you could start seeing Punk started getting beat up. He started looking tired. He didn't feel like himself. And then they have the match. Then after that, Punk kind of just flounders around with the Shield. Um, then they were trying to plant seeds for a CM Punk Triple H match. That's what it was heading towards. And then Royal Rumble happened. Punk's put in the first spot. Then Punk gets screwed by Kane. And then this is where the whole walkout happened. The night after Royal Rumble, Punk walked out with the WWE Championship. Man, I was like, damn. I thought it was a work at first. I thought he'll be out for a month and then by the March 3rd Chicago edition of Raw, that's where I thought he'll make his big return. It didn't happen. And Punk's been gone since. And now today his contract expired. So, I'm going to end this by saying this. At first, I was disappointed, but you know what? Punk will always be my favorite wrestler. I've had so many great moments. Memories. So, CM Punk, thank you. 2006 to 2014, thank you for all the memories. And I'll see you peoples later. I wonder how long is... Damn!